Hello, everybody! Big girl shoes. Woo! Yay! This is going really well so far. See you on the flip side. We don't care. We're gonna keep doing what we're doing, alright?
Oops, my bad.
We got some stories. We got a lot.
The theater.
She my little friend. Woo woo! Temporary technical difficulties. A little piece of my soul dies every time I think about inappropriate content coming your way.
Quarantine edition.
That's what we do here. We dish. Who's in, who's out, who's on top, who's on bottom, who's on top but really wants to be on the bottom.
Following our segment on I'll Eat You Last, a chat with Sue Mengers, we interview actor Andre Ezeugwu.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to A View from the Mez. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Gina.
And we have another awesome episode coming your way. G, you want to tell them about our episode?
In this week's episode, we will be discussing I'll Eat You Last, a chat with Sue Mengers, followed by an interview with actor Andre Ezeugwu. But first, Tracy has some theater news.
The following was pulled from a Broadway.com article. Producer Cameron Mackintosh chatted with Michael Ball a few mornings ago on his BBC radio show, and he was providing insight on what he thinks the future of reopening theaters is looking like right now while we're all in quarantine. Mackintosh said, and I quote, "The truth is, until social distancing doesn't exist anymore, we can't even plan to reopen. And I think from the moment social distancing doesn't exist anymore, it will take us 4 to 5 months to actually get the actors back together. I think the truth is we won't be able to come back until early next year," he says. Mackintosh then goes on to say that theaters reopening with social distancing guidelines in place would be a quote-unquote horrible experience. And he also says, we want the audience to feel safe, and we want the actors to feel safe as well. An audience going together spaced out would be a horrible experience. And it's the experience that makes this so unique, seeing a Broadway show. And I absolutely agree with that. Seeing and sitting next to someone who is laughing or crying
Yeah.
and like really enjoying that show really is part of seeing live theater.
It's
So
so
I
true.
absolutely agree with him 100% on that. But I'm
Me too.
sad at the same point that
I know.
it looks like Broadway won't be opening for a very long time, and my heart goes out to these actors that are out of work and people in the theater industry.
Yeah, it's crazy, and who knows when everything's gonna start back up and what it's gonna be like and how things are gonna, move forward from here. But we just gotta keep on doing what we're doing, stay safe and healthy the best we can.
Yep.
So I guess we'll get into it. On this week's episode, we will be discussing I'll Eat You Last, a chat with Sue Mengers, which Tracy and I went to go see. Full disclosure, we heard that Bette Midler was starring in it, and we were like, we don't care what it is, what it's about. We don't care. It's Bette Midler. We're going to go see it. So I'll Eat You Last is a one-act, one-woman biographical play written by John Logan. And this production was directed by Joe Mantello. The play is based on the first female super agent, Sue Mengers, who launched her career at a time when women talent agents were unheard of. Rising from poverty and a refugee of Hitler-era Germany, Mengers worked her way up thanks to her signature pluck, charm, and wit. By the 70s, She represented a slew of Hollywood stars and went on to become the town's most renowned hostess. Sue had no filter and was a very funny woman, but constantly offended people. People either loved or hated her. There was no in between.
And just to give you some insight on that, one of her clients was actor Michael Caine, and he's quoted as saying, "She's a bulldog with charm."
And when her client Barbara Streisand expressed to Mengers that she was frightened after the Manson murders, Mengers' idea of comforting Barbara was by saying, and I quote, "Don't worry, honey. They're only killing bit players."
Charm, bulldog with charm, you know.
Yeah.
So, as Gina said earlier, I'll Eat You Last starred the one and only, the divine Miss M, Bette Midler, and opened on Broadway at the Booth Theater on April 24th of 2013, and then closed on June 30th, 2013. So it was a limited run, but well worth it for anybody that saw it. And as far as we know, this was slated originally to be a limited engagement. So it didn't have anything to do with ticket sales or anything. It was strictly a limited engagement.
And the setting of the play is the living room of Sue Mengers' Beverly Hills home in 1981. And the story begins before Mengers is about to throw one of her legendary star-studded dinner parties, because she was known for her dinner parties. But her plans for the dinner party is overshadowed by having just been fired by her superstar client, Barbara Streisand, who, as the story has it, she kind of forced Barbara into doing this one film. And Barbara was like, I don't think this is, the right thing. And then she kind of pushed her into it. Barbara did it. And then it kind of bombed at the box office. And Barbara was like, our client manager relationship is over, but we can still be friends. And Mengers was like, no. So she was just dumped by Barbara as a client, and Sue awaits to get like an explanation phone call from her, the funny girl star. She just shares an array of juicy Hollywood gossip stories, and it's a comedy that it's also filled with drama. There's also it also tugs at your heartstrings, because you kind of see like what this woman is dealing with, and you just she was a child of the Holocaust, and she became a Movieland power player, and you just kind of see like her life and her story of her power and fame, and then kind of her downfall.
Exactly. And just to put you in the setting of what you would have been looking at if you went to see this show, the entire show is just Bette Midler as Sue Mengers sitting on a couch near her phone, smoking cigarette after cigarette. But when we saw Bette in this show, that didn't even faze us. Sometimes when shows are slow moving, you're like, oh, when is there going to be a set change? Is something going to happen? But when will they get up and move around, because they've been sitting for an hour and a half? But this show was the complete opposite. We were just enthralled. We were sitting there just staring and wanting to know what was going to happen next. Between the writing and the acting, we were completely invested in her storytelling the entire show.
The entire time. We were both like, we had no idea what we were walking into, and we were both like there for the journey, because we thought Bette Midler, we're going to go watch Bette Midler up on stage. And in fact, yeah, it was Bette Midler up on stage, but what we were watching was Sue Mengers talking about her clients and dinner parties and everything else. So that just like,
and Bette Midler is such a great character actor that she really embodies the character that she plays. So she did so much background research on Sue Mengers and I'm sure that she watched videos and spoke to people who knew her back when and really like researched and like put herself, I'm Sue Mengers. I'm not Bette Midler. I am Sue Mengers. And I think I remember watching or reading an article about Bette Midler talking about this show, and she said that she would go like for days without getting out of character.
Yeah.
And that just seems like so Bette Midler. Like she really gets invested in the characters that she plays. And that's what makes her such a talented actress and such a Broadway legend.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Wasn't there a bit towards the end of the play where she called a man up on stage, but I don't remember what it was for. Do you remember that?
I remember a man coming on stage, but I don't remember what it was for.
It was something funny, like she would every night pick a random guy from like the first few rows to come up on stage and do something. And I don't remember if it was like to like pick up her shoes or carry her slippers to her or something.
Yeah,
or like
it was something like that. Like,
yeah,
like could you grab that for me, honey?
Yeah, she
like,
called everybody honey.
Yeah.
Honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going along with the fact that she was very unfiltered and sometimes offended people. Another one of her comments that she made was that she was at a dinner party and was, amongst other like actors, actresses, and she was looking around the room, and she is quoted as saying, because she didn't feel like the people that she was in the room with were worthy of her being there, she was quoted as saying, "This is Schindler's B list." So
yeah,
that was the kind of woman that she was. And
what a pistol.
What a pistol. I mean, well, we could go back into like her whole backstory of how she grew up, and it is a very interesting story and topic, and you should totally like dive into that, because I did, and it was very interesting. But that her childhood and growing up is nothing to do with the play. We literally start with, she was this huge powerhouse in Hollywood. She got cut from Barbara Streisand, and now she's like waiting to see what her next steps are. The real Sue Mengers is she's since passed away. But yeah, she had a lot of
And just to piggyback off of what you were saying about like her humor, like her dark humor, I think we mentioned it at the end of our episode last week, where she was also at a dinner party, and I don't remember exactly the context behind it, but she was quoted as saying, "If you have nothing nice to say, come sit by me."
Yeah.
So that just like goes to show you she didn't care what people thought of her, because she was such a well-respected person in Hollywood amongst other circles. Some of her major clientele included Barbara Streisand, Cher, Faye Dunaway, Julie Harris, Burt Reynolds, Michael Caine, Gene Hackman, Eric Roberts, Mick Jagger, Diana Ross, Jamie Lee Curtis, Sybil Shepherd, Candice Bergen, Christopher Plummer. Like, if we pulled up a group of people, a group of actors, it would be at least 9 out of 10 of them at some point in their career were represented by Sue Mengers. Like, she was the top of the top, the best of the best.
She was. Yeah, I mean, there's a famous story about how she tried to get one of her clients to star in The Godfather, and everyone to this day is like, was she crazy for, trying to put him up for the part? And the thing about it is that's how like driven she was. It was like her client was like blonde hair, blue eye, and she's trying to like put him up for like this Italian mob character. But for her, it was just like she really worked hard for all of her clients. That's who she was. She didn't care. Like she was constantly, I don't want to use the word harass because it wasn't harassment. She was just so driven that she was like constantly calling people and being like, my client should do this movie. My client should do this movie. My client should do this movie. Like sending flowers. Hey, my client should do this movie. Like she just never stopped. Like if I were to have an agent back in it, like I would want her to be my agent. I want her to be my friend if she was still alive today.
Me too. I think the three of us would make like a great trip, like triple threat.
Oh my God. For sure. For sure.
She'd be the third Broadway babe.
She'd probably end up kicking us out and be the only Broadway babe. Yeah. But the show itself, it as Tracy mentioned earlier, it was a limited engagement, and we're so happy that we were able to go see it because it just was like something that stuck with me for years later. And I think community theaters could do this. It's hard because it's a one-woman show.
Right.
But I think it'd be fine for community theater. Like you have to understand it's not family friendly because she curses and yeah. So but the show itself received like pretty good reviews, I would say. It received positive feedback from the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune, and more, and the NY Times critics pick. It was an NY Times critics pick. And Charles Isherwood of the New York Times said, and I quote, "It was tangy and funny as much of Mr. Logan's writing is. The play would hardly transmit the contact high it does without the presence of Miss Midler. As a performer, she shares certain qualities associated with her subject, an ability to make the crassest vulgarities sound like crystalline repartee, an earthy glamour, and a preening, kittenish imperiousness that's somehow warmly endearing." I could not have said it better. I really could not have said it better.
Me either.
I mean, that's like the best way to describe it because, here's this woman who is so good at her job and she has to be the best of the best because it's such a male-driven industry. And here she is, this woman trying to be, the top of the list and have all of these clients and get all her clients like the best jobs. And she has, this mind and this mouth on her that would just offend a fly.
Yeah.
But she gets it done. She just gets done. But that was amazing. Bette Midler was amazing in it. Amazing. And I'm so glad they had her do it. I mean, it's hard to picture her not doing it. People who were actually friends and clients of Sue Mengers who went to see Bette in it all said like how it was crazy because they felt like they were sitting there watching Sue on stage. So yeah.
Wow.
But I think that's about everything for this week's show. Do you think?
I think we covered everything.
I think we did. And now it's time for us to pick this next week's show. And then we'll have Andre join us. But for now, do you want to pick this week's show?
I'm going to shake them, and try not to get any to fall out the back of the hat because I did that earlier and they all just went flying out of the back of the hat. All right. I think swirling. Got one. Oh.
What?
Okay.
Mhm.
Musical.
Okay.
We saw it together, so we both have seen it.
We've seen so many together.
Something happened to you at intermission, and when you came back, I was not there for reasons that we will get into more next week because I'm not going to ruin an awesome story.
I know exactly what show you're talking about. Hair.
Girl. When I picked this, I was like, oh my God, here we go.
Oh my God, I love it.
Oh,
Can't
guys,
wait.
you're in for some
Such
funny
a
stories
treat.
next week that
Yeah.
are gonna really make you laugh, because we still laugh about this story to this day because it was just total Gina and Tracy Broadway moment that would only happen to us.
100% Tracy and Gina moment. Like, I can't.
I
To this
can't.
day, I will never forget that story. Like, oh my God. Okay, we'll get into it next week.
Yeah, we can't, no spoilers, because this story is just too good to spoil it without being able to go into more detail. So, guys, do not miss next week's show.
Don't miss next week's show, you guys. And we want to just thank you for listening to our segment on I'll Eat Last, a chat with Sue Mengers. And coming up soon is our special guest, friend and actor Andre Ezeugwu.